So I've recently read the latest 4 chapters and finally caught up with the current chapter of the manga, and I noticed something in one panel which will change Blue Lock as a whole forever, and is also the start of a new era of Blue Lock. In chapter 191, Nagi finally managed to beat Isagi and made his dream come true of beating Isagi and become better than him, which he did, and therefore might be the better pure striker for now. With the help of his best friend Ryo, he succeeded in scoring the 2-2 equalizer for Manshine City, and Chris Prince then subbed himself in to become the hero of the match and get his moment. During this substitution, Prince talks to Ryo and asks why he suddenly changed his mind of becoming the world's best player, alone, especially as Blue Lock is a place to create the world's best striker. Ryo then replies that this isn't his number one dream. His real dream is to win the World Cup, and to achieve his dream, he will become Nagi's personal right-hand man, who will provide him with the best assists whenever he can. Ryo has called this his ideal, his new ego, and has therefore entered a new stage of Blue Lock. In the beginning, Blue Lock was introduced by Ego as a project whose goal was to produce the best striker in the world, as any elite football nation usually got a star striker like Messi, Ronaldo or Lewandowski and so on, who is able to decide a game by his own. A player which Japan hardly ever had in their history of football. So the characters and us, the audience, went through a kind of elimination battle royal system to find out who will be the number one star striker for Japan. But we've gotten way past this ideal and system and have now entered a new philosophy, the true philosophy of Ego's idea behind the Blue Lock project, which I will explain in more detail now. So like I just said, Ryo told Prince that he will be Nagi's right-hand man in the future to achieve his dream of becoming a World Cup winner, which will also be manifested as his new ego. By saying this, Ryo has mentally entered a new mindset and is therefore the Blue Lock player who is the closest to Ego's true philosophy of football. Ryo has used Ego's idea, Blue Lock, to improve as a player. Well, obviously everyone else did this as well, but what I mean by this is that Ryo has used Blue Lock as a trigger to improve his mentality, as he's much more confident now in himself, and also to improve his football skills, as he's now able to copy different techniques and skills from other players. But he has also recognized that you need to overcome your pride and not drown in your own selfishness, as football in the end is still a team sport, which means you can't win a game of football just by yourself. You still need the help of your teammates. But to be able to become the world's best team, you need every player to reach their max potential in every possible way, mentally and physically. So Ego's true idea was always first to develop the players' egos and confidence on the one hand, but also develop their physical skills on the other hand, so they can go on and then combine their egos and skills, which is the final step of his plan, to become the world's best team. Ego has talked about this in the latest chapter and explained that the Blue Lock project has only been able to be successful so far because of the interactions between the fantasy of each and everyone who is a part of Blue Lock. So the success includes Ego's fantasy of creating the world's best striker, Henry's fantasy of Japan winning the World Cup one day, the fantasy of the Japanese football fans of seeing these fantasies happen, and the fantasies of the unpolished gems out on the field. All these fantasies have crossed with each other to create this kind of success. So success only emerges at the point where your fantasies interact with someone else's. Ego then went on to criticize Yukimiya and already labeled him as a failure who will not become a world-class player. And the reason therefore is simple, with the theory I just explained. Yukimiya is a player who might skill-wise be able to reach world-class level, but in Yukimiya's own fantasy he sees himself as a hero who is able to beat everyone by himself, which he won't be able to do obviously. No one can do that in football without the help of his teammates, and every player has a kind of maximum skill range that he can reach and therefore has a different task. Some can go a bit further and some not, and as you reach your maximum potential, you need to find your role in a team and be ready to give everything to fulfill your role, your task. For example, Ryo has recognized that he won't be able to become the world's best striker, as there are just better players like Nagi for example, in the specific role than him. But this doesn't mean that he will automatically become useless. No, his role, Ryo's task, is to help Nagi so that Nagi can reach the full potential of his role, which is being successful as the number one striker of the team. So the fantasies of those two interact with each other, which is needed to achieve the dream of becoming World Cup winners one day, which is also the ultimate goal of everyone in the end above everyone's individual goal and fantasy. So the fantasies of those two interact with each other, which is needed to achieve the dream of becoming World Cup winners one day, which is also the ultimate goal of each and everyone in the end, above everyone's individual goal and fantasy. So Yukimiya is currently avoiding to connect his fantasy with the fantasy of others, as he for example doesn't want to interact with Isagi. Yokomiya sees himself as the best player in the team and is living in his own fake reality, which will prevent him from connecting with others, which will result into failure. Ryo is on a much further level already than Yokomiya, as he buried his pride and realized that he needs to do his part for the team, which is being the right-hand man of Nagi. And as soon as everyone of Blue Lock has found his own true ideal and role and will also be ready to interact with others, Team Blue Lock will become the best team in the world. There are so many players who have also already reached this kind of state and have therefore entered the next stage in a higher level than Yokomiya. For example, Hayori, Corona, Nanase. Yes, most of them aren't maybe skill-wise the best players, but they all found their role in the team and buried their pride. For example, all three players that I just mentioned have realized that their role is to support Isagi and be his pillars, so Isagi can reach his full potential on the field and take control of the field as the team's playmaker, while Isagi's role is also to connect each and every one. Isagi is the one who will connect all of the fantasies with each other and bring them together as one. So there are players like Kunigami and Baru, for example, who are skill-wise one of the best players in the Blue Lock team, but their problem currently is that they have the same mindset like Yokomiya and don't want to interact with others, which would mean that they are going to be failures as well. But I'm sure that they will be fine because their skill and physical level is much better than Yokomiya's, and the only stepping stone they need to overcome in their development is to interact with others and connect their fantasy with others, while players like Naruhaya, for example, failed in the Blue Lock project because of their skill level. Naruhaya had also reached this kind of thinking and saw his role in supporting Baru to beat Nagi and Isagi, but in the end he lost the game because he individually and skill-wise just wasn't good enough, while Baru on the other hand, who has the skill that you need on World Class level, wasn't able to bury his ego and interact with Naruhaya. Kunigami and Shigiri both failed against Shido and Igarashi because although they interacted with each other, they just weren't good enough skill-wise back then. Which is the reason why Kunigami needed to go through the wildcard first and improve his skills there, and why Shigiri needed to improve his skills at Manshine C. But Igarashi, who is skill-wise a pretty bad player, quickly realized that he needs to support Shido and interact with him to be able to reach the next stage of Blue Lock, and just got lucky that he had a teammate with Shido who is already a world-class striker, so he was able to defeat the team of Kunigami and Shigiri. So you can say that you have three types of Blue Lock players currently and in the past. The ones who got the skill that you need to be able to play on workout level, but who don't have the ability to connect their fantasy with others and bury their ego like Kunigami, Baru or Rin. Then the ones who are able to interact with others but didn't or don't have the football skills that you need to play on World Cup level like Naruhaya in the past, or Okawa, Yemon and so on. And the ones who are able to fusion their fantasies and who also have the skill level that you need, like Isagi, Bachira, Corona, Hayori, Gagamaru, and so on. And Ego's idea and true philosophy of Blue Lock has never been to find the number one striker from the beginning. It was always to first of all find the best players for each position, to improve these players' skills mentally and physically and help them reach their max potential, and then connect them together to create one big common fantasy, which is then to win the World Cup for Japan. And Ego knows that he needs to find the number one key player who is able to connect all those players and their egos, which he hopes to find through the Blue Lock project. And most of the time in football history, these kind of players in different teams have been strikers, which is the reason why Ego pretends to find the world best striker, when in reality he actually tries to find the number one key player who can unify each and everyone and their ideals and fantasies to finally fulfill the dream of Japan becoming World Cup winners. So yeah, this was my theory about Ego's true philosophy of Blue Lock and football. If you like this video, leave a like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what you think. And as always, stay safe and have a nice day.